The views and opinions expressed by the following program are those of the host, guests, and callers and are not necessarily those of this station or Webster Rock Hill Ministries, its management, or other hosts or underwriting sponsors. Programs presented by KWRH-LP are for educational and entertainment purposes only.
And a welcome day to you listeners in Listenerland.
Listenerland.
This is Arnold Stricker of In Tune with
Ellie Wharton.
Hey, and In Tune's a 2-hour weekly broadcast which focuses and reflects on issues that impact and connects our community in the greater St. Louis area. Our topics include the arts, crime, education, employment, faith, finance, food, history, housing, humor, and justice. Today, this particular hour, we have Pat Kelly, who's the Executive Director of the Municipal League of Metro St. Louis.
Not the Pat Kelly.
The Pat Kelly.
Wow, in the live.
He's in studio. Welcome to In Tune, Pat. Glad to have you here.
I'm speechless with that introduction.
Hey, we have a lot of questions for you. I guess, first of all, as a little background for our listeners who may not have tuned into the previous broadcast, this is going to be part 4 of a multi-part series. We did a part 1 that had Terry Jones from last summer talking about the great divorce between St. Louis County. We dissected in part 2, Better Together, last week in part 3. Terry Jones was on again and talked more specifically about Better Together and his impressions about that, and some of those were in the Post-Dispatch. And today, you are part 4 because we kind of want to hear what the Municipal League of Metro St. Louis has to say about this, and I'll let you define that in a minute. But first of all, tell us a little bit about who you are. Who's Pat Kelly?
Well, first of all, it's great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. I am a lifelong St. Louis, actually Brentwood resident, and having grown up there here in Mid-County, I served as an alderman for 8 years and mayor for 14, and didn't run for re-election in 2015, and about 6 months later took the position as the executive director of the Municipal League, really because I had concerns about what Better Together was planning. It came to attrition a few weeks ago when they announced their plan. If you know anything about local government, this is what we predicted 4 years ago, and we're really concerned about this nuclear bomb proposal that they have.
Now, I know, being on your website, that there's 3 things that I thought were very, very good about the Municipal League, is you advocate, you collaborate, and you educate. And who is the Municipal League, so people will know? Because I don't think a lot of people know.
Yeah, actually, across the country, all the states have municipal leagues, which are organizations of municipalities. The Municipal League of Metro St. Louis, we're in our 100th year. We're actually 25 years older than our state league. Our charter limits us to the municipalities in St. Louis County, St. Louis City government, and St. Louis County government. Of the 88 municipalities in St. Louis County, 84 of them are members. For years, we were a resource for municipalities, kind of behind the scenes. We acted as a way of bringing local leaders together to collaborate and talk about how they could be more efficient, what they can learn from other leaders and cities in making their communities better. We also sponsor a training academy once a month where local officials and municipal employees can come and on different topics all throughout the year and over the years. So we look at ourselves as a resource for municipalities. Over the last couple of years, we've been kind of pulled out of the background and pulled into the forefront because of the issues facing our local governments.
So there's things like a municipality, like, say, Webster Groves, maybe looking at a particular kind of ordinance, and they may go to the Municipal League and say, hey, what kind of ordinances do you have that relate to this? Or is there an ordinance, basic ordinances that you have, say these are some model ordinances that could be used in any municipality?
Exactly, and really, as technology is improved over the last few years, we're able to help them with that in a much quicker pace. But years ago, when everything was pretty much paper and so forth, it was a huge resource for the municipalities to have that central organization that really had a lot of model ordinances and those kinds of things. But that's actually exactly one of our primary services to the municipalities.
How do the municipalities relate to each other? I'm sure on some issues there may be a disagreement, especially like on the sales tax pool and things like that. I want you to talk a little bit about those kinds of discussions that happen. Are they in a big group? Are they in smaller groups and then get back together? What I've read in the media is that some of the municipalities are at loggerheads with each other, and in a situation like Better Together, they're all best cousins.
Right.
So how does that work?
Well, I think like any organization, I think that's what is one of our strengths is that we don't always agree with each other. Sales tax pool, over the years has probably been one of the most contentious, and it's usually 50-50. You're either for it or you're against it. But I think that shows our strength in that we look at those issues. We've changed it a couple times over the years, how the structure is and so forth. But we did that through a process of having open meetings and participating in that process. And once the vote was taken, everybody moves on. We still have our membership and we still work together. I think it shows the strength of the league that once a decision is made, we all continue to move in the same direction.
Now, you're a not-for-profit, nonpartisan, it's voluntary. You promote stronger local governments, and your members represent 98% of the population of St. Louis County and St. Louis City.
That's very big.
That's
That's
huge.
Humongous.
That's right.
Ginormous.
So your general membership regularly throughout the year, as we've talked about, discusses policies, form positions that promote effective government of local communities. Now, let's talk about effective government of a larger community or a larger new proposed metropolitan city.
Unigov.
Unigov.
I think that's actually a polite way of saying it.
We try to be polite here.
We're talking about better together. And Pat, I know you said at the initial part of the broadcast that's one reason you were led to this position as executive director, and because you kind of feared what was coming down the road, and things have kind of been realized. Have they been over-realized or under-realized from your viewpoint at this time?
I would actually say under. We took the position a little bit over 2 years ago that we were opposed to a statewide vote because we knew then that that's what Better Together was going to do. But it wasn't until their plan was actually released about a month ago that you actually could see really what they were going to put in that plan. We were under the contention that they didn't need to go to a statewide vote, that they could use the Board of Freeholders process to actually accomplish what they were going to do. But now that their plan's released, to be quite frank, they have to use the Constitution in a statewide vote because, to be quite frank, they're violating the Constitution in order to accomplish what their end game is.
Now, talk a little bit about that last statement, because we had a little conversation about that off air, but explain that to folks, that what they are doing is actually we're going to be giving up a lot of our rights.
So the easiest one, I think everybody, is probably one of the things that really is of most concern to everybody, the fact that they're taking this to a statewide vote, which is really diluting the value of the voters in St. Louis City and County. The governmental structure of St. Louis City and County will be decided by outstate Missouri. No matter how St. Louis City and County vote, 77% of the voters on that primary election in 2020 will be from outstate Missouri. So they will decide on the governmental structure that we are formed under. More importantly is that they're using the Constitution, which is supposed to protect our rights as citizens of the state of Missouri, to actually take our rights away. And so, for instance, there's a number of different types of municipalities in the state under the Missouri Revised Statute of fourth class, third class, village, and so forth. Those are statutes. But under the Constitution, it allows for cities to be formed as charter cities. And that's a right and a protection under the Constitution. So there are 17 cities in St. Louis County that are charter cities, that their residents have come together, built a charter, voted on that, and approved as the governmental structure that they want to live under. It's their Constitution, and it's protected by the Constitution of the state of Missouri. What Better Together is doing by going to the Constitution, they're saying your residents' approval of that Constitution no longer matter. It doesn't matter what they voted on for some of those more than 100 years ago to create their cities. Most of our charter cities are older communities in St. Louis County: the Kirkwood, Webster, Clayton, Ferguson, Florissant, Creve Coeur, just to name a few. And so it's taking their Constitution, the rights of their voters that put that in place, and saying it doesn't matter anymore, and the people in Kansas City and Joplin are going to vote and say, your rights don't matter anymore, we're going to change your form of government.
Do you think that the people in those areas, do they understand this?
I think the word is getting out. I think most people just look at the state where I vote, but let's face it, their petition is 25 pages long. You almost need a lawyer or to be a lawyer to actually understand what it's saying. I think there's 48 plus times where they say, something along the lines of, except where otherwise stated in the Constitution, which means, they're cover-all statements,
Right.
But the word is getting out, and I think people are understanding. Another clear violation of the Constitution is that it states today that, and these things are in the Constitution for a reason, so it says that no two counties can come together unless it's approved by a majority vote in both counties. Well, they're throwing that out.
Is that one of the things that they're going to dismiss if this passes?
Right. And so, because obviously we would be joining and it wouldn't be approved by St. Louis City and County. So, yeah. But here's another one. Under their new form of government, under the Constitution today, as we already mentioned, there's Article 6 of the Constitution, which is the Board of Freeholders, which is really put there specifically for St. Louis City and County to come together, have a public forum where the residents can have input and make decisions on the governmental structure. And ultimately, that Board of Freeholders can put a proposition to the voters or a plan for St. Louis City and County to make that ultimate decision.
Only in St. Louis County.
Right, it's St. Louis City and County. And it has to be approved by both the majority vote of St. Louis City and St. Louis County. It's actually how they created MSD.
Correct.
Okay, so under Better Together's proposal, they're eliminating the Board of Freeholders.
So the citizens would not have any kind of recourse
No.
to change the government at all.
Right.
So there would be no lawsuits after this.
Well, actually, that's another thing that's in their petition. So it says that once it goes into place, it requires that the new municipal districts, so Webster is no longer a municipality, it's a municipal district. It does two things. One, right now, all the municipalities are creatures of the state. They're political subdivisions in the state. Under Better Together's proposal, all of the municipal districts become political subdivisions of the new metropolitan St. Louis. Basically, the metropolitan St. Louis has complete authority and control over those municipalities.
They're kind of giving Metro St. Louis to be equal with the state of Missouri,
Right.
in power and
Yes,
authority.
Absolutely. So under their proposal, a municipality or a municipal district, at a simple majority vote of the new 33-member board, they could actually vote to eliminate them. But let me go back to you mentioned the new form of government that they would be creating. A lot of people have heard about the county executive will become the new mayor and 2 years passes but here's what's more scary about it is it takes the county executive or the mayor and the mayor pro tem, basically the county executive and the mayor of St. Louis, they get to create the new charter.
Right.
And not only do they get to create it, but it gets approved by a board that they appoint.
Right.
And then it takes a 2/3 majority to change it. So you're eliminating the Board of Freeholders process. You're creating this 2/3 majority that would be needed to change the charter in the future, and any other structural change you would do. Right now, in the future, this new form of government will be embedded in the Constitution.
Right.
So the only way to really change it in the future will be to actually have another constitutional amendment.
Another statewide vote.
Right, exactly.
So that, I'm trying to, my hard drive's spinning in my head trying to land on something that you said. People have input into any kind of charter that goes on.
Right.
It's discussed, and there's public meetings, although I know Better Together's holding public meetings now, albeit there's only 150 people can show up at some of those, and you have to sign up in advance, and you can have them come out and talk. But it's a very open process with the Board of Freeholders, correct?
Well, it's public. I mean, I would say that Better Together is not having public meetings.
Right.
When you say it's by RSVP, you limit the number to 150. It's going to be an hour and a half long. They'll probably have 3 or 4 stage questions. It's nothing more than a PR campaign.
Right.
They're not going to change their proposal. This isn't to solicit input. Even in their 165-page plan, it says that they, had 7 public meetings,
Right.
and if you total up all the number of people that participated, it's less than 5,000.
Right.
So that's like 0.3%, 3%. I mean, not one, percent of the population of St. Louis City and County. I guarantee you they would have had much more participation if they said, we're going to have a meeting and talk about eliminating local police departments, right? Instead of saying, we want to talk about collaboration efficiencies.
Right.
So, or if they said, we want to have a meeting and talk about reducing your municipality to a homeowners association responsible for your local parks. So they're very disingenuous in how they approach this. They were very deliberate in how they approach this, and they're going to be very deliberate as they move forward.
And that's very, very frustrating because the average citizen is just going to get what they know about this from the media. And if a particular media outlet is for this, they're going to promote that. If they're against it, they're going to promote that. But there's always a pro and a con on this. But the devil is in the details. It's always in the details. And like you just said, some of these things are guised under other kinds of language or other kinds of cover to flush through what they want. And as we talked a little bit before the show today, and I've said this previously, some of their results that they've got from their information, I thought have been very, very good. At least you have some kind of database of some information. And rather than bring that to the municipal league or bring that to the chiefs of police, you guys would have had a lot of good information in a real collaborative way to say, hey, they really want to work with us. Let's see how we can formulate some things. What is your impression of the data that they've collected? And I know you talked a little bit about the process, but obviously they have a different agenda than what the municipal league has.
Well, I think you can tell their agenda by their name.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
which we called it Better Get It Together.
That's right. Better Get It Together.
And Better Together will tell you, and they'll say that we offered for the municipal league to participate, and they refused to do that, and it's just not true. I could send you a letter by email. It was from Bert Walker, who was the president of our chairman of Better Together when it was first formed, thanking the league for a list of names of people that we sent. Their names are included in the letter, and the committees that they would be serving on for Better Together, and thanking the league for sending them, and they look forward to working with us. None of those people were ever contacted to actually serve on those committees.
Interesting.
And so when the task force was formed a little over a year ago, I sent an email to all of the task force members, and I told them what the league. I gave them our history, what we do, said, consider us a resource. We'd love to participate in the process. The only person that replied was Dr. Ross from Washington University. He said, thank you. We appreciate it. We'll be in contact. We look forward to your input. I then forwarded him, actually, the study you talked a little bit ago. St. Louis County and St. Louis City had hired an outside firm to look at all their departments to see how they could collaborate to be more efficient back in 2011 or 12. I think it's a 400-something page book. They spent close to $500,000 having it developed, and I guess it's set on a shelf because the only thing they took out of that book was that's when they actually merged the economic development offices together to create the economic development partnership. But to that end, Dr. Ross, I sent that to him and said, well, here, you don't need to rewrite everything. Here's something for your, but we've never heard from them since.
Interesting.
So we very much wanted to be, but I think it's pretty obvious, the reason they didn't want us to participate is because we would have been raising questions all along. Really, all their information that they have is basically just financial information.
Right.
They took the budgets, they took the audits and so forth. So yeah, it's a great resource. It's all in one place. But what the budgets don't tell you, and let's just use police for example. What Better Together is saying that, we spend X on police. And whether, they're saying it's too much or whatever their conclusion is. What they're leaving out of that equation, which is the most important thing, is the quality of the police. Mm-hmm. So what they should have done, if they really wanted to see if there's something that should be changed in the police structure, is where is the crime being committed?
Right.
Because it will show you that in St. Louis County, the majority of the violent crimes are being committed in unincorporated St. Louis County or in places where are being policed by St. Louis County through contracts. And not that it's any fault of theirs, but unfortunately that's some of the lower income places, municipalities and unincorporated parts of St. Louis County. But it's also that they don't have the same type of coverage that the municipal police departments do. And so, and that's for all of the departments that they look at. So at the local level, government is a service organization. They
Right.
provide services to the residents. They provide parks and public works and home inspections and police and fire. At the end of the day, with Better Together's proposal, if you're going to save $1 billion in 10 years or every year after thereafter, what they're not telling you is what services are you going to be cutting. So they're taking all public works away from municipalities. They're taking police, public safety away from municipalities. They're leaving them with fire departments, but that's only for the short term because municipalities will actually have to increase their property taxes in order to fund those fire departments, which will be a chances. I mean, it'd be very expensive to do. One concern we have is that municipalities are limited to $1 property tax, so we don't know how that's going to be changed. But so it really comes down to the quality of services, which is the biggest part of the equation that they've never put into their studies.
And you said prior to us coming on the air, talking a little bit about their savings, that savings has been touted this past week as being, I think it's $1 billion over a 10-year period. And they had initially said that they would save $250 million, and now it's grown to this massive figure. But your description of that was based upon what?
So when they released their plan about a month ago, I thought it was very interesting. It raised this question to a lot of reporters and people, how can you release a plan without any financial backing? And Better Together's answer is, well, we're still working on it. Well, then that should have been another red flag if you release your plan and you don't have your financial information. But this week they released their financial information, and basically all they did was take the total cumulative budgets for the St. Louis City County municipalities from 2017, took those total revenues and expenses and said, over 10 years, we're going to eliminate 3% with a 2% inflation factor. Not how they're going to do it, where the cuts are going to be made. Okay, so to me, if that was a homework assignment, they just got an F. Because it's not really a plan. Anybody could take that to a budget and say you're going to do it, but it's how you do it.
Right, and where you're going to get it from.
Right. Yes.
And one of the things that as government grows bigger, and this is one of the things people like living in their municipality, whether it's Webster or Kirkwood or Brentwood or Creve Coeur or University City or wherever it is, that those services, they can go to their local government. Let's take trash collection, for instance. There's one firm, which will remain unnamed, which several municipalities are struggling with. And if this Better Together, it's going to be one trash kind of pickup for everybody. And if you're not getting your trash picked up, it reminds me of things where I see large cities like New York or Chicago, where trash is piled up on the curb because there's some sanitation strike, or they're having trouble getting people, or when you enlarge that kind of contract, it's just maybe overwhelming for a lot of companies to be able to handle those kinds of things.
Or you could actually envision City of St. Louis who can't afford to buy their trash trucks.
That's correct. They are struggling with that. They're struggling with that.
And every time we get someone to talk about this issue, we learn more and more. It is amazing how many little intricacies there are in this this whole proposal. So how is if we're learning this every week, how is the general public going to know everything that's going on?
They're going to learn it by listening to this show.
Excellent answer.
And we're trying to peel back the onion, all the layers of the onion. And Pat's one of these people who's helping us peel some layers back, because we've talked about a little bit off air, folks, that, and you may not be aware of this, but they had submitted an initial petition, and then they withdrew that, and they submitted another one now to the Secretary of State's office to get enough signatures to put this on the ballot. It would be hilarious if they didn't get enough signatures to do this, but I think that's going to happen.
Well, they're paying for them, so they'll get them. Yeah.
Money talks, doesn't it?
I was going to say, it seems like money is at the forefront of everything here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what groups, Pat, have kind of an interest in the area, or even statewide, in the Better Together proposal?
Well, I think it's all local. Interesting enough, the first great divorce, as they like to call it, that was really orchestrated by the business leaders and the powers that be of St. Louis City at the time in 1876, when this went to a vote and this divorce happened. And it was really because at that time, they didn't want the tax dollars from St. Louis City going to the rural St. Louis County, which only had a population of about 30,000 at the time. Ironically, the population of St. Louis City in 1776 or 1876, when they separated from the county, was actually higher than it is today.
Seriously?
Yeah. So
wow.
So and actually leads me to another point. The last big influx in population in St. Louis County was actually in the 1960s, where it went up by almost 270,000 people in 1960s. But since 1970, the population of St. Louis County has only increased by 40,000. And my point is that, the league and our membership, we're not saying that there aren't regional issues that we need to come together and work on. But our feeling has been for a number of years is that we have lacked regional leadership. The mayor of St. Louis and the county executive, when they were campaigning over the last couple of years, you never heard any of them talk about collaboration and regional issues, and we needed to merge the city and county together.
That's correct.
Even if they could actually call for the formation of the Board of Freeholders if they wish to, and yet they're not doing that, and so we really are lacking that leadership. The county executive has never said, "Hey, mayors of St. Louis City County, we need to come together and talk about how we can fix some of these things at working in a collaborative effort." We've never had that opportunity, and so I think that lack of leadership is but holding our region back.
It's interesting he makes that point, because we made that point a couple of weeks ago.
That's right.
The region has lacked leadership, strong leadership, to kind of unify the region together to move forward.
Right. And really, most of even the issues that Better Together talked about in their press release when they announced their plan, almost everything they were talking about, the dysfunctionalities, were actually issues between St. Louis City and St. Louis County.
Right.
Municipalities are here to provide specific services. Their elected officials are elected to manage their cities, and they're not full-time people. They're pretty much volunteers for the most part, and really do a good job of managing and having stable communities. The county executive is a full-time position. His job is to look out for the region, but that leadership just hasn't been there.
Now, on the first petition, there was some changes made to the second petition. And do you know anything about any of those changes or the impact of those changes?
Yeah, the majority of those changes were actually dealt with some of the financial aspects of it. Some of them were designed to actually ensure that municipalities for the next 17 months could still actually issue some bonds. The fear was that because of the way this petition was written, that it would cloud that process and make the bonds either too expensive from an interest rate standpoint, or that they couldn't be insured. So some of those changes were actually things that municipalities wanted, so that they could continue to operate over the next 17 months. Some of the other ones were, interestingly enough, the fire districts were left out of kind of a safety clause in the first one, and so they were put in there with school districts in the second one, and some other changes like that, but nothing really drastic. One of the things I need to actually go and look at to verify is that in the first petition, our new mayor will actually be the county executive of St. Louis County in this new metropolitan St. Louis. In the first petition, it didn't say that. It said that the new mayor would actually be the county executive in office on January 1st, 2019. Not the county executive that's in office when the voters approve the petition. So that would mean that the county executive today, no matter what happens between now and then, would become the new mayor. And so it's almost naming him by name that he would be the new mayor.
Right. Wow. And that's not the case for the interim mayor.
No, the interim mayor is the mayor of St. Louis. Right.
Okay. So a quick question here. This is going to be mainly for the Municipal League, because you guys have begun thinking, or maybe you have formulated a Board of Freeholders process on your own, correct?
Right. Yes, we have. Yeah.
So have there been conversations on the Municipal League to say, hey, now that we see this going on, we need to kind of move forward and propel ourselves forward with our own thought process on how we can better unify the area? Can you explain that a little bit more, enlighten us on that?
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that we're made up of governments. And, governments, we're used to processes. When the city of Webster wants to look at a zoning issue, they have public meetings and solicit input from their residents, and especially for zoning changes and those kinds of things. Or when they're going to put a comprehensive plan together. I mean, that's a year-long process usually for most municipalities. And really, so the league doesn't have a plan. But what we do is we have a process, and that's the Board of Freeholders. And by initiating that through an initiative petition process, which if anybody wants to sign our petition, I'd be more than happy to take that. But once those signatures are collected, the county executive and the mayor are required by the Constitution to appoint their 9 members each to the Board of Freeholders, and then the governor appoints one member. And then this is what's neat about the Constitution. They can't ignore the will of the people, because then once those board members are appointed, they must have their first meeting within 30 days. And then they have 12 months to solicit input from residents on any kind of governmental structure or plan. And so the plan of the future should really come from the residents and the input that the Board of Freeholders receives from the residents during that process. I'm hopeful. I think that there is a will to have some change. I think there are regional issues that we need to look at. And I think that if going through that collaborative effort, that's how you build consensus. And ultimately, I would hope that the Board of Freeholders would be able to put a plan before our voters that St. Louis City and County can get behind.
That sounds great. What are some of those issues that you think that we could get together on, Pat?
Well, I think one that has to be on the table, and I think in talking to people, it and again, it's not my opinion, but I think that it's just the city re-entering the county as a municipality, and eliminating the duplication of services of the county government. There would be some efficiencies there, but to be quite frank, even that kind of merger, when Better Together talks about Indianapolis and Louisville and Nashville, none of those cities have seen any really significant savings. Correct. In some cases, it's actually been more. The other thing that's important, as Better Together touts those as example, they all left the municipalities out of their equation. So in Louisville, there were 90-something municipalities that were completely unaffected by the merger of the county and the city government together. And same way in Indianapolis, they have townships. So all the townships were left intact. But here in St. Louis, and this is, again, one of the reasons I'm here is because you could see this 4 years ago. In order to accomplish what Better Together is trying to do, they needed the money from the municipalities. This is as much about tax reform as it is about trying to merge our communities
together.
You're
talking about sales tax? You're talking about property tax, or both?
Sales tax primarily. So, for instance, they're going to have all these efficiencies, okay? But you're eliminating $140 million from St. Louis City's budget. That's a third of the city's budget, and right away that's automatically dedicated to retire the city's debt.
Now, is that with the earnings tax?
That's the earnings tax.
Right.
So that goes out of money that was being used for services. Right. St. Louis County government is struggling right now. They're spending their reserves to balance their budget. They're talking about a property tax increase next year, or potentially, in order to continue to provide the services that they're providing today. Well, under Better Together's proposal, they're eliminating the earnings tax, $140 million, and they're also calling it would, from the first year, would reduce the property taxes in St. Louis County by 50%. So
where's the other money going to come from?
Right. It's coming from the municipalities. It's coming by eliminating public works departments. It's coming by merging the police departments and downsizing them. There's no way they're going to be able to afford. There's more municipal police officers than there are St. Louis County or St. Louis City.
So what you're saying is that the makeup is going to come from the reduction in services.
And reduction in personnel, yes.
And personnel.
It has to. I mean, again, we're a service organization. The only way you can have savings is to reduce the services.
Right. And do you think that the public understands that? I mean, of course, when we look at reduction of property taxes, everybody goes, woohoo!
Right.
They think that's a good thing. But then when they realize that what's happening is that it really isn't. I mean, what they've been used to in terms of public works and services and things are going to be eliminated or are reduced.
So in essence, the municipalities, from a public works standpoint and policing, we would be really just like unincorporated St. Louis County. So that's a kind of services that you're going to be getting. So from police coverage and from public works. So no more plowing streets when it snows. Instead of being on maybe a 8 to 10 year maintenance schedule for municipal streets, you're going to be on a 20 to 25 year schedule.
Okay, now what about trash pickup, things like that?
Well, that's one of the glorified things that they left with the municipal districts. They can still maintain their parks and take care of their trash. So. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And you had mentioned zoning earlier, and
Yes.
I think that's another key component. The new municipal metropolitan St. Louis will create a uniform zoning code for the entire metropolitan St. Louis. They're saying that the cities will have a planning and zoning department, but it's only an advisory type committee. If a petition is presented to them, if it gets a negative recommendation, then that petition automatically goes to the metropolitan St. Louis planning and zoning, which has, again, all total control over the municipal districts. So, for instance, if somebody wanted to build a 5-story building in downtown Webster, Webster would really not have the control or authority over that. It would be metropolitan St. Louis.
Well, we know that the residents of Webster would never stand for that.
Well, you never know.
We've watched
Right.
what they do just with situations that have come up, for instance, with the old YMCA building, and how they, people came out in mass week after week after week to city council, and it even ended up in a lawsuit.
Oh, but Ellie, if we're part of this great metropolitan St. Louis, then we have to think of the greater good, and maybe people in Valley Park and Edmondson and Woodson Terrace would benefit by having that 5-story structure in the heart of Webster Groves, and we really need to think about them. That's what the answer is going to be.
Exactly, but that is really ludicrous because
How'd I do
how
on that,
often how often do those people come into Webster, or do Webster people go into those other municipalities?
Well, it's the loss of your rights. It's the loss of your ability to input to your government, which we are the government. And so, if you look at we form a government, and as you were talking, my mind was just going crazy because how long did it take us to get to this point in our governmental entities to have all of these laws, all of these regulations, all of these kinds of policies, and now all of a sudden we're going to not just revise them, we're going to pick them up, we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we're going to build a new tub, we're going to have to dig a new well to put water in the tub, and then have a new baby.
That's right. Get a new baby too. Now, one of the questions that I had last week, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it, we each have different city halls and buildings. What's going to happen to those? For instance, Rock Hill just last year built a brand new city hall along with their fire department and police department, and their voters overwhelmingly approved that.
Right.
What happens to that new structure and also the beautiful city halls that we have all around?
So the cities actually will in the second petition, actually maintain control of those facilities and also be required for the maintenance. What's interesting, though, the new metropolitan St. Louis has control over the police departments. So immediately, all of the municipal police departments become employees of the Metropolitan Police Department.
That are housed within
Right.
the local city halls.
So, for instance, Creve Coeur, who is not yet opening yet, their new, I think it's an $8 million police department,
Right.
standalone building. Once they get it completed and their residents are paying their property taxes to pay off the bonds for that, the new Metropolitan St. Louis can actually use that, confiscate that, and use it for their purposes, rent-free.
But Creve Coeur still has to pay for it.
That's
Pay
right.
for not
Yeah.
only the bonds, but the maintenance.
I just spoke with Barry Glantz about that, just like last week.
Right.
Not a happy camper.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Under the zoning too, one of the things is it's interesting. You hear the business community. Oh, it's so complicated. All these municipalities, and there's some truth to that. I mean, because different permitting and those kinds of things. And I was talking to a home builder. He was saying, it's just crazy. He goes, it's so hard to get things approved in the city of Kirkwood, and every time it's something different, and it's such a hassle. I said, well, why do you keep building there?
He should come to Webster. He'll really find out what difficulty
in Webster,
is.
and Webster would be the same answer.
That's
And
right.
I said, why do you keep building there? And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, why don't you just build in unincorporated St. Louis County?
Right.
And I said, because you don't get the same return on your investment.
Right.
The reason you get so much for the house you're building in Kirkwood is because of the standards that they've set.
That's right.
And it's the same way in Webster
That's
Groves.
right. And it's with the businesses,
And so, it may be somewhat of a hassle, but at the end of the day, they're actually better off. And I said to businesses, where would you rather get your permit, the city of Brentwood for your business license, or go through St. Louis County? When you want to call for an inspection through St. Louis County and they say, okay, we want a plumbing inspection, and they say, okay, we'll see you next week. You go to a city like Webster Groves or city of Brentwood and say, we need a plumbing inspection. They say, well, what time can we see you this afternoon?
Right.
Or tomorrow morning?
Right.
And, so there's ups and downs of that. The big complaints are the big corporations. They're the ones that don't want the local zoning. For instance, Centene, probably would have been much happier dealing with the metropolitan St. Louis when they're building in the city of Clayton, instead of putting up with Clayton, who delayed them and made them spend more so that they could protect the rights of the citizens who were in a condo building that would no longer see sunshine. And making Centene spend more on their project. And so those are the people that are, they're really kind of in favor of this one zoning district, one zoning for all kind of zoning.
Yeah. Now, we've just got a few more minutes here, Pat. I had a question that related to this issue ending up in the courts, and I've heard some things that this would be challenged right away. What are your thoughts on that? And if so, which aspects? Because I think it's hard to give up. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around this. That even though we have a right, when we vote for this, it eliminates that right. And it doesn't seem like you can eliminate a basic functional right of the Constitution with a vote people who don't even live here.
Right. I'll dance around this question. Let me put it this way, that everything's being looked at. How's that?
Okay.
And there's certain, there's timing issues. So, but everything is being considered at this point. We have to ensure that we're protecting the rights. I think it's interesting. The Missouri Constitution actually specifically says you can't have special laws. When they created Senate Bill 5, we challenged part of that, which required all the St. Louis County only municipalities to be able to, it had to be certified. And so we challenged it. I went to the Supreme Court and we won. They said you can't just do that in St. Louis County, either it's across the state or not. So I think it's interesting with Better Together's proposal. So they if the Constitution says that you can't create a special law, how can you create a special law that's only impacting St. Louis County?
Right.
By eliminating charter cities just in St. Louis County, by taking their tax money that was approved for local use and then never ratified by the bigger body, and they're going to use it wherever they want. I mean, that's not. That's actually criminal. If a city did that, they'd be thrown in jail.
Yeah.
It'll be an interesting process. As I try to tell people, we're pumped up now, but it's going to be a marathon. We have 17 months in front of us.
So if folks want to get more information about the Municipal League of Metro St. Louis, what should they do, Pat?
So you can go to our website. If people want to help us collect signatures, we're looking for volunteers. Our petitions are on there for both the city and the county. There's 2 different petitions. There's information on there about how we think that this is going to impact a report that was written by Dr. Jones at UMSL, kind of what is it actually doing to local government. And you can always call our office, and I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody.
And you can look them up online. It's stlmuni.org. stlmuni.org. That's the Municipal League of Metro St. Louis. And they are designed and in business now for over a century, 100 years, to advocate, collaborate, and educate. And they are advocating for the citizenry. They are collaborating together and trying to collaborate with those people who want to put better together. And they are educating us on these particular items that are going forward, which will impact us in years and years and maybe forever to come if it passes.
Yeah. Actually, you brought up Rock Hill's new city hall. We move our membership meetings around every month to different municipalities, and next week Rock Hill is hosting at their new city hall. And as an example of our education and to our members, one of the things that is coming to the forefront is the new medical marijuana law and how that's going to affect local zoning. And so we're having a presentation at that meeting for our local elected officials on, one, the zoning issues. So we'll have a professional in the zoning, attorney that does zoning. We're going to have an attorney there on the labor side of that. How do you handle employees now with these new medical marijuana laws? And then somebody from the industry to say, these are what we're going to be looking for from the retail aspect to the manufacturing, and make that a panel discussion on that so that our members can be better educated.
But isn't that the kind of thing, getting a collaboration, getting information, so people are aware and that there's a dialogue that's going forth, so people can work together towards issues that might come up or solve some issues together, or hey, how did you do that? And be on the forefront of things rather than try to, I don't want to say be on the defensive, but people have an agenda, and when we work together, when we advocate together, when we collaborate for those things that are going to benefit citizens and help educate our leaders, it really helps all of us out together. So
it does, and that's
when we're really better together.
Absolutely.
one of our goals.
Pat Kelly, I appreciate you coming on today. Thanks very much.
Appreciate the opportunity. Love to come back anytime.
Great. Thank you. We probably will have you back.
Yeah, we've been continuing this conversation. This conversation today with Pat Kelly was part 4. Again, if you did not get a chance to listen to part 1 or part 2 or part 3 of our conversation with Terry Jones from the University of Missouri St. Louis about the great divorce between St. Louis City and St. Louis County, part 2 where we dissected the Better Together proposal, part 3 where Dr. Terry Jones came back on again and talked about his impressions of Better Together, and then today, Pat Kelly from the Municipal League of Metro St. Louis and discussing that. You can go to iTunes or go to SoundCloud and pick those previous shows up. Just plug into the search engine In Tune Radio Show, KWRHLP, and you will see a series of things. Matter of fact, today is show number 58, Ellie.
Really? We've been together that long?
We've been better together for 58 shows. and it's not we better get it together.
That's right.
I would say we've got it together.
We've got our stuff together.
Hey, wouldn't that be a great slogan for a city that actually tried to advocate and collaborate and educate together? We've got it together.
We've got it together.
I think I might use that.
Very good. And also don't forget that if people would like to hear a repeat of our show so that they can digest a little bit more, the In Tune show airs again on Tuesday morning from 9 to 11 So once again, there are many opportunities to hear this conversation. There's no excuse for anyone to be misinformed.
That's right. Listeners out in listener land, you need to be informed as much as you can. So we're grateful that you've stayed tuned. On our second half of the show today, we're going to be talking about inventors and their contributions. Going to surprise you with a couple of these. So we're going to iron some things out. I'm going to tantalize you there.
Oh, boy. That was a very good segue.
This is Arnold Stricker with Ellie Wharton of In Tune. You're listening to KWRHLP, 92.9 FM, your community radio station in Webster Groves, Missouri.